She was already checking her watch when he walked in. Not because she was impatient. Nadia Cole did not do impatient. She did precise. And precise told her it was 7:21 on a Tuesday evening. The reservation had been for 7 o'clock, and the man, her assistant, had booked her into meeting, without asking, without a single word of warning, was now 21 minutes late to the first and probably last date she would ever agree to. She had almost canceled, 3 times. The first time she had her phone in her hand and the matchmaking services number pulled up. Then her assistant Priya had knocked on her office door with a look on her face that said, "Please do not cancel this, I did it because I love you," and Nadia had put her phone down without pressing call. The second time she was in the car on the way to the restaurant. She had told her driver to take her back to the office instead. He had nodded calmly and driven 2 blocks before she said, "No, never mind, keep going." He had not reacted. He was used to her. The third time she was sitting at the table, alone, with a glass of water she had not touched, and a bread basket she was ignoring, and a quiet awareness that every other table in this restaurant had 2 people at it. She had pulled out her phone, not to cancel, to check emails, because if she was going to sit here looking like someone who had been forgotten, she was at least going to make the time useful. That was when he walked in. She noticed the smear first, a pale, greasy streak on the left sleeve of his dark jacket. She identified it immediately, detangling cream, the kind used on a child's hair. It had dried slightly at the edges but was still visible in the warm light of the restaurant. He had not noticed it. That much was obvious. He was scanning the room with an expression she recognized, the expression of someone who knew they were late, and was calculating whether an apology would make it worse. She lifted her hand, a small, controlled gesture. He found her. He walked toward her with a stride that was unhurried despite the circumstances. She noted that too. She noted most things. Nadia. He said her name like he had practiced it. She found out later Danny had coached him on pronunciation. "I'm Marcus. I'm sorry I'm late. It won't happen again." She looked at him. He was tall, solid through the shoulders, with close-cut hair and the kind of face that held a story in every line of it. Not young, not old, in between, in the way that suited some men and ruined others. On him, it worked. "Sit down," she said. He did. The waiter appeared immediately. They always did for Nadia, at any restaurant, in any city, and took their orders. Nadia ordered without looking at the menu. Marcus studied the menu for 30 seconds, made a decision, and set it down. She noted he did not apologize to the waiter or make a joke about needing more time. He simply chose and moved on. "You're a structural engineer," she said. Not a question. Priya had given her a 1-page brief. "Yes." He picked up his water glass. "And you run a real estate firm." "I own a real estate firm." He looked at her steadily. "There's a difference. There's a large difference." He nodded, as though filing that away. "How large?" She told him, the figure, plainly, without softening it. She had learned years ago that announcing it early was the most efficient way to sort people. Some people went wide-eyed. Some people went tight-jawed. Some people immediately began calculating what proximity to her could do for them. Marcus took a small sip of water and said, "That's a significant portfolio." She studied him. "It doesn't bother you. Should it?" She did not answer that. She picked up her fork. They talked about his work first, a structural assessment he was finishing for a commercial building in the city center, a load-bearing problem that had stumped 2 other firms before his. He described it without ego, without performance, with the clean precision of someone who understood exactly what they were doing and saw no need to dress it up. She found herself listening more carefully than she had intended. Then he asked about her work. Not about the company or the numbers or how she had built it. He asked what she found difficult about it. She stopped. Nobody asked her that. "That's an unusual question," she said. "It's the most interesting one." She considered. "Managing the distance between what I know and what I can act on," she said finally. "I can see exactly how a project should go, the timeline, the risk points, the likely failure modes, and then I have to hand parts of it to other people and trust them not to see what I see. That distance is uncomfortable." He was quiet for a moment. "You don't trust easily. I trust data. I trust track records. I trust systems I've built and tested. Not people." She looked at him. "People are inconsistent." He smiled at that. Not a polite smile. A real one. The kind that reached the corners of his eyes and settled there. "Yeah," he said. "They are." Something shifted. Not dramatically. Not in a way she could have pointed to. Just a small internal rearrangement, like furniture moved an inch. They ate. They talked. She told him about Accra, where she had been born, and the office she had started in that had no windows, and a ceiling fan that only worked on its lowest setting. He told her about studying engineering on a scholarship that covered tuition but not housing. So he had lived in his cousin's basement for 2 years and called it character building. He said his daughter's name once, offhand, mid-story, while explaining why he had been running late. He said, Zoe's hair, and then moved on, the way parents do when they assume the other person knows what they are referencing. Nadia did not let it pass. Zoe, she said. He looked up. My daughter, she's 5. Her hair was undone when I was about to leave and I couldn't. He stopped. Looked at her a moment. I couldn't leave her looking like that. Nadia looked at him for 3 full seconds. This man had been 21 minutes late to a first date, to a date with a woman who ran a multi-continental real estate firm, because he could not leave his daughter's braid undone. She picked up her glass. How long has it been just the 2 of you? 3 years, he said. She did not ask more. She did not have to. 3 years carried its own weight in the way he said it. By 9:45, the restaurant had quieted around them. They were among the last 4 tables still occupied. Neither of them had suggested leaving. He talked about Zoe once more. Something funny she had said to a grocery store clerk about why mangoes were the most important fruit. Nadia laughed. A real one, which surprised her. She was careful with her laughter in public. She gave it out like a limited resource. At 10:15, they stood outside on the pavement. The night was cool and clean. A car waited for her at the curb. Her driver, who had been circling for 40 minutes without complaint. Marcus held out his hand. She shook it. Firm, brief, professional, like 2 people who had just concluded a successful meeting. Thank you for dinner, he said. Good luck with the load-bearing problem, she said. He smiled. Good night, Nadia. She got into the car. Her driver asked no questions. He never did. She sat in the back seat with her hands in her lap, and the city sliding past the windows, and she did not reach for her phone. She just sat there. 3 minutes passed. She had 17 emails waiting. A board briefing at 7:30 the next morning. A call with a contractor in Accra at midnight. A full, structured, productive life waiting for her on the other side of that car door. She thought about a smear of detangling cream on a dark jacket sleeve. She thought about a man who could not leave his daughter's braid undone. She thought about the way he had said 3 years, and how much he had not said in those 2 words. She started the engine in her mind, the one that processed, categorized, filed things away under the appropriate label, and moved on. She ran the evening through it. She reached for the filing label. She could not find one that fit. She picked up her phone, put it down, looked out the window. Her driver turned onto her street. She still had not moved when they pulled up outside her building. Good evening, Miss Cole, the doorman said as she stepped out. Good evening, she said. She rode the elevator to the 14th floor, walked to her apartment, stood in her kitchen for a moment, in the dark, in her coat, without turning on the lights. Then she hung up her coat, turned on the lamp over the stove, and made herself a cup of tea. She did not examine the evening. She did not need to yet. But she did not throw away the matchmaking service's follow-up email when it arrived at 11:07 p.m. She read it once, marked it unread, and left it sitting there at the top of her inbox, where she would see it again in the morning. That was new. She was not a woman who left things unread and unresolved in her inbox overnight. She did not examine that either. She turned off the lamp and went to bed. 6 days passed. She did not reach out. He did not reach out. This was not a game. It was simply 2 people who had spent their whole lives not reaching for things without a good reason, sitting inside that habit because it was the only one they knew. On the 7th day, Nadia went to the Saturday farmers market 2 blocks from her apartment. This was the one place she went without a plan, no assistant, no phone calls, no structured purpose. She went in the morning, when the light was low and slanted, and the vegetable sellers were still arranging their tables, and she walked slowly, and looked at things, and occasionally bought something she did not need. Her chef had, more than once, arrived on a Monday morning to find a bag of dried herbs and 3 varieties of mushroom that had nothing to do with that week's meal plan. He had learned to absorb them gracefully. She was standing at a mango stall, a wide, fragrant display of Alfonso mangoes. small and yellow and piled like a pyramid, when she saw him. He was on the other side of the stall. He had a canvas bag slung over one shoulder, and a small girl perched on his other shoulder, one hand gripping his hair for balance, the other pointing at something in the distance with absolute authority. He was listening to her with full attention, tilting his head up toward her the way people do when they are genuinely interested in what a child is saying. Nadia did not move. He turned, following the direction of his daughter's pointing finger, and saw her. A moment passed. One of those moments where two people recognize each other in an unexpected place, and both of them pause before their bodies remember how to move. The girl on his shoulder looked at Nadia. "Hi," she said, with the confidence of someone who had never once worried about whether she would be liked. "Hello," Nadia said. "I'm Zoe. I'm 5 3/4. That's almost 6. She held up 5 fingers, then appeared to struggle with the fractions, and held up 6 instead. "Do you like mangoes? My dad says they're the most important fruit." Marcus reached up and caught Zoe gently as she began sliding forward to get a better look at Nadia. He set her down on the ground with the ease of long practice, and she immediately took 2 steps toward Nadia, stopping just at the edge of appropriate stranger distance. "Marcus," Nadia said. "Nadia." He adjusted the bag on his shoulder. "This is—" "I know, Zoe." She looked down at the girl. "Nice to meet you properly." Zoe studied her with open, unembarrassed interest. "Your earrings are gold." "They are. Are you rich?" "Zoe." Marcus's voice was quiet and patient. "It's all right," Nadia said. She crouched down, which she did not often do in public in a good coat, until she was eye level with the girl. "Yes, I work very hard. And some of that work pays for gold earrings." Zoe considered this seriously. "My dad works hard too," she said. "He fixed a building that was going to fall down." "I heard about that," Nadia said. "That sounds very important." Zoe looked satisfied. She turned and picked up a mango from the bottom of a nearby pile, which caused the seller to inhale sharply and move toward her. Nadia stood quickly and paid for the entire top layer before the pile could shift. The seller blinked. Nadia handed a mango to Zoe. "This one," she said. "Not the bottom ones. They're holding up the others." Zoe accepted it solemnly. "Like a building." Exactly like a building. Marcus was looking at her. She became aware of this and looked back. He did not look away. "There's a coffee stand," he said, "if you're not in a hurry." She was not in a hurry. She was never in a hurry on Saturday mornings. That was the whole point of Saturday mornings. But she said, "All right," in a tone that suggested she was making a small concession, because she was not yet ready to let him see how easily she had agreed. They walked to the coffee stand, Zoe between them, holding the mango with both hands. The stand sold one kind of coffee and one kind of tea, both made on a small gas burner by an older man who seemed personally invested in every cup. Marcus ordered 2 coffees. Nadia looked at the setup and privately prepared herself for disappointment. She was right to prepare. The coffee was terrible. Bitter in all the wrong ways, thin in all the wrong places, served in a paper cup that was too small for the amount of effort one was expected to make in holding it. She drank the whole thing. They stood at the edge of the market, watching Zoe inspect a table of dried flowers with deep seriousness. The morning was bright and unhurried around them. "She picked you a mango," Marcus said. "I noticed." "That means she likes you. She doesn't offer her mangoes to most people." Nadia looked at Zoe. "She's extraordinary." He was quiet for a moment. "She is." The way he said it, not proud, not performed, just simple and sure and full to the brim, made something tighten briefly behind Nadia's ribs. She breathed through it. Zoe had moved on from the dried flowers and was now standing in front of a table of hand-painted cards, pointing at one with a bird on it and explaining to the seller, at length, why birds were better than other animals, because they could leave whenever they wanted. The seller, a young woman, was listening with delight. "She talks to everyone," Marcus said. He sounded like he had made peace with this. "Good," Nadia said. "People should." She paused. "I was not like that as a child." "No? I was extremely quiet," I observed. "I catalogued. I spoke when I had something worth saying." He looked at her sideways. "And now?" "Now I have many things worth saying, and a great deal of patience for waiting until the right moment." He smiled, the same real smile from the restaurant, unhurried, unperformed. "That sounds exhausting." "It's extremely efficient." He laughed. and she let herself smile fully, and Zoe came running back with the bird card and held it up to Nadia and said, "Do you want this? It costs £2. My dad has £2. Marcus put his hand over his face briefly. Nadia opened her handbag. "I have £2. She paid for the card. Zoe presented it to her with both hands, ceremonially, the way important documents are delivered. Nadia accepted it the same way. They walked 3 more stalls together after that. Nobody suggested it. It simply happened, the way things happen when the alternative would require more effort than moving forward. At the end of the market, Marcus bought a bag of vegetables that Nadia privately assessed as mismatched: late-season tomatoes, early spring peas, and 3 parsnips that seemed to have come from a different conversation entirely. She said nothing. They stood at the exit of the market. The day was opening up around them, full of Saturday possibility, unhurried and wide. "It was good to run into you," Marcus said. "Yes," Nadia said. "It was." Zoe wrapped her arms around Nadia's knees, briefly, emphatically, with the total commitment of a 5-year-old who had decided the matter was settled. Nadia stood very still for a moment. Then she put her hand, gently, on top of Zoe's head. Marcus watched her do it. She stepped back, collected herself, and reached into her bag. She produced a business card, black, heavy, simple, and held it out to Zoe. "It's shiny," Zoe breathed. "Keep it safe," Nadia said. Zoe clutched it to her chest. Nadia looked up at Marcus. He was watching her with an expression she could not fully categorize, and she had a very good system for categorizing expressions. "Goodbye, Marcus," she said. "Goodbye, Nadia." She walked away. 4 days later, at 6:47 in the evening, her phone rang. She was at her desk. She was in the middle of reviewing a land acquisition report. She picked up on the second ring, which she did not do for most people. "I'm calling," Marcus said, "because Zoe has taped your card above her bed. She said she wanted to remember the nice lady. I thought you should know." Nadia set down her pen. "I thought you should know too," he said, "that she's calling you the Mango Lady." She looked at the bird card on her desk. She had not put it away. She had not examined why she had not put it away. "That's the best title I've had in years," she said. He laughed. They talked for 40 minutes. When she finally looked up from her desk, the light outside was dark, and the building around her had emptied out quietly while she was not paying attention. Her assistant had gone home. The floor was still. She sat in the quiet with her phone in her hand. 40 minutes. She could not remember the last time she had talked to someone for 40 minutes about nothing that required a decision. No agenda, no action points, just conversation, moving where it wanted to go, unhurried and unscripted. She had told him about her mother in Accra. He had told her about learning to braid hair from a YouTube video at 11 p.m. because Zoe's first school photo was the next morning. She had told him about the 2 years she had spent sleeping on a fold-out in her cousin's flat in London while she built the business. He had told her about the first time Zoe had said, "I love you, Daddy," after a bad day, when he had needed to hear it more than he knew. She had not cried. She was not a person who cried at other people's stories. But she had sat very still for a moment after that one, her hand flat on her desk, feeling the weight of it. She stood up, gathered her things, walked to the elevator. Her driver was waiting downstairs, reading a paperback novel he slid under the seat the moment she appeared. She had told him more than once that she did not mind the reading. He still hid it every time. In the car, she looked at her phone. She had not told Priya about the market. She had not told anyone. She opened her contacts, found his name, looked at it for a moment. She did not text him, but she saved his number under M. Webb, with a mango emoji she added and then stared at for 10 seconds and left there, because removing it would have required an explanation to herself that she was not ready to write. She looked out the window at the city, moving dark and bright and full around her. She thought, "This is something." She did not let herself think anything more than that. Not yet. They did not fall in love the way people do in films, fast and breathless and obvious. They fell the way real things fall, which is slowly, and at an angle, and with pauses where you stop and look around and wonder how far you've come from where you started. Over the following 6 weeks, it happened in pieces. A text on a Wednesday evening, Marcus, describing a building he was currently assessing, a Victorian-era structure in East London, with a basement that nobody on the original plans had bothered to document. He sent her a photo. A narrow, dark space, brick walls that curved unexpectedly, a single light on a wire. She wrote back, "Someone built that, and chose not to tell anyone." He responded within 30 seconds. "Exactly." And they were off for another 40 minutes, through text this time, about the things people hide inside the things they build. A dinner the following Friday, Italian place, small, informal, chosen by her. She had debated the choice more than she would ever admit. Not in terms of quality, the food was excellent and the owner knew her by name, but in terms of what it said. She did not want it to say too much. She did not want it to say too little. She chose it because the tables were far enough apart for a real conversation, and she left it at that. He arrived on time. He noticed. She saw him clock the fact that she noticed. They ate slowly. They argued gently about the value of formal education. She had 2 degrees, and deeply believed in the structure they gave the mind. He had 1 degree, and deeply believed that half of what he knew, he had taught himself in basements and on-site, and through 3 years of raising a child alone. She did not concede. He did not concede. Neither of them wanted to. She liked that. She had spent a large portion of her adult life in rooms where people conceded too quickly, where the conversation bent toward her before it had even found its own shape. She had stopped trusting the opinions of people who agreed with her too easily, because easy agreement was not agreement at all. It was performance. Marcus did not perform. On a Tuesday morning 3 weeks into this, she arrived at one of her properties for a routine walkthrough, and found him there. He was the structural engineer brought in by the third-party assessor. He had not known it was her building. She had not known he was the engineer on call. They stood in a corridor on the 2nd floor and looked at each other for a moment. "Well," she said. "Well," he said. They walked the building together, which had not been the plan for either of them. She watched him work. She watched the way he moved through a space, deliberate, observant, running his hand along walls the way some people might read Braille, gathering information from surfaces that looked ordinary to everyone else. He crouched at the base of a column and pressed 2 fingers against the joint and explained to her, quietly, what he was feeling for. She did not pretend to find it less interesting than she did. He saw her in her own world that morning too. In the stairwell, she got a call from a contractor in Accra about a delayed permit. She spoke for 4 minutes, in English, in a tone that was calm and absolute, and entirely without apology. When she hung up, she found him watching her. "I take it the permit is sorted," he said. "It will be by tomorrow morning." "You didn't raise your voice." "I rarely do." She tucked her phone away. "Raised voices signal that you have run out of better tools." He was quiet for a moment, looking at her. "I'd like to know what the better tools are." She looked back at him. "Buy me coffee after this and I'll tell you." He did, she told him. The coffee was better than the market coffee. They sat in a window seat of a small place near the building, the city moving outside, and she talked about negotiation and leverage and the architecture of a conversation. He listened in a way that people rarely listened to her, not waiting for his turn to speak, not cataloging the parts that impressed him, but simply following where she was going, staying right with her. It changed the way she spoke. She found herself going deeper into things than she usually went in public, following the thought all the way down instead of stopping at the respectable level. She was falling. She was aware of it in the way you are aware of a sound that has been in the background so long you only notice it when it stops. It was already there. It had probably been there since the restaurant. She simply had not stopped moving long enough to hear it clearly. 2 weeks after the building visit, Zoe was at her after-school program, and Marcus met Nadia for dinner near her office. Halfway through the main course, she got a call from her board secretary, a briefing document she needed to review before a 7:30 a.m. meeting the next day. She apologized. She picked up her phone. She reviewed the document for 8 minutes while he sat across from her, eating unhurriedly, reading something on his own phone without a word of complaint. It was the lack of complaint that bothered her. Not because she wanted conflict, because the lack of complaint made it impossible to defend against him. Every wall she had built required something to push against, and he kept refusing to push. She put her phone down. "I'm sorry," she said. "That was rude." He looked up. "It's fine. You had to." "I didn't have to. I chose to. That's different." He put his own phone down. He looked at her with a directness she had come to understand was just how he looked at things. No deflection, no performance. What's the difference? One is necessity, one is habit. She picked up her fork. I'm working on the habit. He was quiet for a moment. You don't have to defend yourself to me, Nadia. She looked at him. The thing behind her ribs again. That tightening. That rearrangement of something long settled. I know, she said quietly. That was the truest thing she had said to anyone in a very long time. After dinner, they stood outside on the pavement, and he pulled her coat collar up slightly against the wind. A small, unthinking gesture, the kind someone makes when they have temporarily forgotten to be careful, and her whole body registered it like a signal. He noticed what he had done and almost pulled his hand back. She did not step away. They stood there for a moment, very close, the city loud and indifferent around them. I should get back, she said. Yeah, he said. She walked to her waiting car. She did not look back. She did not have to. She could feel him watching her until the door closed. In the car, she sat with her hands folded in her lap. She was falling. She knew it now, clearly, without the background noise to hide it. And the knowing was not frightening the way she had expected it to be. It was something else, something she had no clean word for. She looked out at the city, the lights moving over her face. Something warm, she thought. It felt like something warm. But she did not reach for her phone. She did not text him. Not yet. She would let it be what it was, for one more night. Just hers. Just warm and unresolved and entirely alive in the quiet of the car. Tomorrow she would know what to do with it. Tonight, she let it stay. The magazine article resurfaced on a Wednesday. Not a new article. An old one, 2 years old, from a profile that had run in a business publication about women who had built companies from nothing. The profile had been thorough and respectful, and had included exactly one quote about her personal life that, at the time, had felt like the most honest thing she had ever said in print. She did not want children. She had built her life to run cleanly and with purpose, and children, wonderful as they might be for people who wanted them, did not fit the architecture of the life she had chosen. That was what she had said. Those were her exact words. She knew this because someone on her team sent her the reshared link at 3:14 on a Wednesday afternoon with a wink emoji and the message, "People are saying things." Nadia read the article. She read her own quote. She sat with it. At 3:31, she called Priya into her office and told her to hold her afternoon calls. At 4 o'clock, she went for a walk, alone, without her phone, which she almost never did. She walked 3 blocks, turned, walked back, went upstairs. She stood at her office window and looked at the city and thought about a small girl who had wrapped her arms around her knees at a farmer's market without asking permission. She thought about a bookshelf she had noticed in Marcus's apartment the second time she had been there, filled with picture books organized by color rather than title because that was how Zoe had wanted them. She thought about the 40-minute phone calls, the terrible market coffee, the way he had pulled up her coat collar without thinking. She thought about what she had said 2 years ago and whether it was still true. She did not know. That was the honest answer. And Nadia Cole was many things, but she was not someone who lied to herself about honest answers. She had built everything she had on not lying to herself, not even when the truth was uncomfortable. She did not know. At 9:17 that night, Marcus called. She answered on the second ring, as she always did with him. He said hello, she said hello. There was a pause, not unfriendly, just honest. You saw it, she said. Yes. Who sent it to you? My sister. Of course. Danny. Who was protective of Marcus in all the ways a sister becomes protective of a brother who has been left before. I want to ask you something, Marcus said. His voice was even, not cold, not angry, even. And I want you to answer me honestly, because I can handle a hard answer better than I can handle the wrong one. Ask, Nadia said. Has anything changed since you said that? Or did you mean it when you said it, and do you still mean it now? She sat down on the edge of her bed. I meant it when I said it, she said. The person I was 2 years ago built her life around a very specific idea of what she wanted, and that idea didn't have room in it for the things that have happened in the last 3 months. That's not the same as saying it changed. No, it isn't. Silence. Marcus, she pressed her hand flat against the duvet. I don't know. That's the truth. I am standing in a place I have never stood before, looking at something I was not expecting, and I don't have a clean answer for you. I want to give you one. I don't have one. He was quiet for a long time, long enough that she thought he might simply say goodbye, and she would need to let him, because she had no right to ask him to wait for a woman who could not answer a simple question. Then he said, "I need you to know that I'm not playing a casual game here. I have a daughter. Everything I do touches her. I won't bring someone into her world who doesn't know yet if they want to be there. I know that. Do you?" "Yes." Her voice was steady. "And I'm not asking you to wait for me. I'm telling you where I am because you asked me to be honest. If that's not enough for you, I understand. I will understand completely." Another silence. "I'm going to hang up now," he said, "and I'm going to think about this. And I'd like you to do the same." "All right. Good night, Nadia." "Good night." The call ended. She sat on the edge of her bed for a long time. She did not sleep easily that night. She lay in the dark and looked at the ceiling and let herself think about things she usually kept filed and organized and managed. She let them out. She looked at them plainly, the way she looked at balance sheets and risk assessments, with full attention and no preference for any particular outcome. She thought about what she wanted. She thought about what she had said she wanted, and when she had said it, and who she had been when she said it. She thought about Zoe's arms around her knees, about the bookshelf, about the terrible coffee she had drunk all the way to the bottom. She thought about Marcus's voice on the phone just now, even and honest and sad at its edges. She thought about a man who had been 21 minutes late because he could not leave his daughter's hair undone. By the time the light changed from dark to gray at the edge of her curtains, she knew. She did not know everything. She was not that kind of person. She did not trade in certainties she hadn't earned, but she knew enough. She knew what it meant that she had drunk the terrible coffee. She knew what it meant that she had put a mango emoji in her contacts at midnight and not removed it. She knew what it meant that the first thing she had thought of, the very first thing, when she read her own quote in that article, was Zoe's bookshelf organized by color. She knew. She got up, showered, dressed, made herself tea in the quiet kitchen. At 7:45 a.m., she got in her car. She did not go to the office. She went to his street. She sat outside for 3 minutes. She got out of the car with 2 juice boxes, the kind Zoe liked, the ones with the small pineapple on the front that she had noticed in his fridge the second time she had visited, and she walked to his door and she rang the bell. He answered in a gray, long-sleeved top, barefoot, hair still morning rough. He looked at her. He looked at the juice boxes. He said nothing. "I changed," she said. "I didn't know I had until I had a reason to notice, and then I noticed." He stood in the doorway. "I'm not asking you to believe me today," she said. "I'm asking you to let me show you, however long that takes." He looked at her for a long moment, the kind of look that goes through things rather than at them. Then from somewhere down the hallway came the sound of small, determined feet on a wooden floor, and then Zoe appeared, in her pajamas, hair loose and wild, holding something, and she saw Nadia, and her face opened like a window.
"Mango lady,"
she said. She crossed the distance between them at full speed. Nadia caught her. Her arms went around the small, solid, warm weight of her, and she held on, and she looked up at Marcus over Zoe's shoulder, and he looked back at her, and neither of them said anything because there was nothing left to say before this moment. Everything after it, though, everything after was still to be built. Marcus stepped back from the door. He held it open. She walked in. The first Saturday morning, Nadia stayed long enough to make breakfast. She burned the toast. Not catastrophically, just slightly, the kind of burn that fills a kitchen with a thin, honest smell, and means someone has to decide whether to throw it out or just eat it anyway. Marcus ate it anyway. Zoe inspected hers, announced that she preferred it this way because it was crunchy, and asked for more. Nadia stood at the toaster with a tea towel in her hand and felt something shift quietly inside her. Not dramatically, not in a way she would have been able to explain to her board or her mother or any of the people who knew her as composed and precise and always in control. Just a small rearrangement, like a window opening that had been painted shut for a long time. She made more toast. This was months after the doorstep morning, months of slow accumulation, dinners and market Saturdays and long phone calls, and one memorable Sunday when Zoe had insisted on teaching Nadia how to build a tower from plastic cups, which had collapsed twice before Nadia had quietly assessed the structural weak points and rebuilt it in a way that Zoe declared was amazing, and that Marcus photographed without saying why. He texted her the photo that night. No caption. She had looked at it for a long time before saving it. There had been a difficult stretch in the middle, early autumn, when Nadia had disappeared into a major acquisition deal that consumed her completely for 3 weeks. She had called when she could. She had been honest about the gaps. Marcus had not complained. He had also not pretended the gaps were fine. He had said, once, quietly, at the end of a short and tired call, "I'm not asking you to choose. I'm asking you to tell me what I'm working with." It was the fairest thing anyone had ever said to her. She had restructured the following 2 weeks. Not abandoned the deal. She did not abandon things she had committed to, but she had made room. Deliberate, scheduled room. Tuesday evenings, Sunday mornings. She had told her assistant to hold everything non-critical during those windows. Priya had said nothing, but she had smiled in the way she smiled when she was very pleased about something and trying to be professional about it. The acquisition had closed. The Tuesday evenings continued. The Sunday mornings expanded. Now it was a late Sunday in November, and Zoe was at the kitchen table with a book, narrating the pictures to herself in a running murmur, and Marcus was washing up the breakfast dishes, and Nadia was making a second round of tea because the first had gone cold while she was listening to Zoe explain why the dragon in her book was actually the hero and not the problem. "She's right, you know," Marcus said without looking up from the washing up. "I know," Nadia said. "It's a reasonable reading. She'll argue it for 45 minutes if you let her. I know that too." She handed him a clean mug. "I've got time." He looked at her. She looked back. Something passed between them in the ordinary domestic quiet of the kitchen, something that did not need to be said because it was already everywhere in the room, in the burned toast smell and the child's murmur and the ordinary brightness of a November morning. Then Zoe looked up from her book. "Nadia," she said, with the authority of someone who had clearly been thinking about this for some time. "Yes, you should live here." The kitchen went very quiet. Marcus turned off the tap. Nadia set down her mug. Zoe seemed to find their stillness confusing. "You come here a lot," she said reasonably, "and you always look sad when you have to go. I don't like it when you look sad." Marcus covered his mouth with the back of his hand briefly. Nadia looked at Zoe for a long moment. "I'll think about it very carefully," she said. "Okay." Zoe went back to her book. Marcus met Nadia's eyes. His were bright with something he was doing a heroic job of not laughing at. She shook her head at him. He turned back to the washing up. She picked up her mug, but she was smiling. A real one, the kind she had stopped managing or measuring a long time ago, somewhere between the farmer's market and the burned toast. There were things that still needed solving, she knew that. She was a woman who looked at problems directly, and she did not make the mistake of pretending the practical things had sorted themselves. Her work demanded more than ordinary working hours, and always would. His schedule was built around a school pickup at 3:15, and a bedtime at 8 o'clock, and a 5-year-old who occasionally woke at 2 a.m. because she had dreamed about the dragon again. These lives did not simply fold into each other without effort. They had talked about it, more than once. Honestly, the way they talked about everything. Not arguing, not assuming. Just two people who had both been surprised by their own lives, sitting with the actual shape of things and working out what might be possible. It was not easy. Nothing worth building was easy. She knew that better than anyone. But she had learned something in these months, something she had not known before, or had known theoretically without feeling it, which was that the difficulty of something and the value of something were not in opposition. The burned toast and the 2 a.m. dragon dreams and the structural engineer in her conference building and the mango at the farmer's market and the smear of detangling cream on a dark jacket sleeve, all of it, all the texture and inconvenience and surprise of it, was not the obstacle to the thing she had found. It was the thing she had found. On a Sunday in February, a cold, gray, unhurried morning, Marcus put a ring on the kitchen table. They were in the middle of a conversation about something entirely separate. She does not remember what, something practical, a scheduling thing, and then there was a small sound, a ring on wood, and she looked down, and there it was. Simple, quiet, gold. She looked at it for a long time. He said nothing. He waited. He was very good at waiting. She picked it up. She looked at him. "Yes," she said. He exhaled slowly. She saw it move through his whole body, the relief of something finally set down. From the hallway, there was a thundering of feet, and Zoe appeared in the doorway in her socks, out of breath, eyes enormous. "Are you staying now?" she demanded. "Dad said maybe you were staying." Nadia looked at Marcus. He pressed his lips together. "Your father," she said, "told you too early." "I told her nothing," Marcus said. "I heard ring," Zoe said accusingly. "I have very good ears." Nadia sat down at the kitchen table, at Zoe's level. She held out her hand with the ring on it. Zoe studied it with the seriousness she applied to all important matters. "I'm staying," Nadia said. Zoe considered this. Then she said, with great dignity, "I knew it since the mango." She walked back down the hallway. They heard her bedroom door close. Then, faintly, the sound of her talking to herself in the satisfied way she did when something had gone exactly as she had expected. Marcus looked at Nadia. Nadia looked at Marcus. She was going to say something. She had several things she could have said, all of them true and real and worth saying. But instead she just sat there at the kitchen table in the gray February light, with the ring on her hand and the smell of burned toast still somehow present in this kitchen, in this ordinary, extraordinary life that had started because her assistant had sent an email she almost deleted, and a man had been 21 minutes late with cream on his sleeve, and the complete inability to leave his daughter looking anything less than cared for. She sat there. She felt it, all of it, the texture and the weight and the warmth of it. She did not file it, she did not categorize it, she did not need to. She just let it stay. Years later, a journalist asked her what had changed her. She said, "A man who was late, and a little girl who gave me a mango." The journalist waited for more. Nadia smiled. "That's all," she said. "That's everything."